this baby was rushed to the ER with shrapnel wounds, but he didn't make it. And there are also moments that are inspiring the world. This bride and groom were married in their military gear. This young musician's haunting violin solo lifted spirits in a bomb shelter. And this little girl in a shelter is singing Let It Go from Frozen in Ukrainian. Just listen to the reaction.
Браво, браво, умница! Умница! Ты очень хороший был. Для светлого будущего.
So what's going on, people? I'm just hanging out right over here, watching TV or watching YouTube videos, having a watch party. What about? Well, you could see a picture of Mr. Zelensky,
Joe and Mika, this convoy that we've been
the president of Russia or Ukraine,
sits somewhere outside of Kyiv, as Richard just said. The Russian military is struggling to take what amounts to a suburb of the capital city. It remains to be seen if they use bigger force.
Good morning.
They're going after humanitarian.
Currently, the date right now is Tuesday, March the 8th, 2022. Yeah, yesterday's broadcast went to garbage because if you look at my laptop, I don't know if you can see it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. No, I don't think you can. But anyways, when the laptop goes down to like 5% is when you start having all kinds of weird glitches and whatnot. So I'll see how far I can go. And yeah, welcome to the watch party. Okay. So yeah, today's Tuesday. The time currently in California is 9 a.m., close to 9 a.m. Yep. So let's watch some news.
Targets, hospitals, civilians are being killed, but so far,
the Ukrainians are holding up. Too.
And as most military experts have been saying for quite some time, it's one thing to fight the Ukrainians in open fields in less densely populated spaces. It's quite another to engage in urban warfare with them where the Ukrainians would have an advantage. We have seen city streets while they've been trying to march toward Kyiv that have been just reduced. If you look at the streets, the Russian tanks and the vehicles have just been reduced by ashes because they're just easy targets for these Ukrainians. They're easy targets even out in the country. We saw fuel supply convoys being caught yesterday and blown to pieces and trapped. And you have Russians that are now escaping those convoys because they know they're sitting ducks. So we have, as you're looking at these terrible images, we have quite a few things going at the same time. You do, of course, have a humanitarian crisis. It continues to expand. Well over 2 million people are fleeing Ukraine, and they're going west. You also, though, do have the second story that Russian troops are stalled. There was an extensive Pentagon briefing yesterday, always with the warning that this could change at any time, but at least as of yesterday, what we've said is, and what the Pentagon said, is that Russian troops have stalled. You had a general yesterday, a second general get killed in combat, 2 colonels getting killed.
You see this black box right here?
Dying.
Well, I'm going to show you something right now.
Crazy.
Some people are concerned that they might
have to go about
for a
all
long
this
period
crap,
of time.
these advertisements. I hate all that shit.
Not what they're expecting at all. And of course, we talk about when the oligarchs and generals are going to start responding. This early in the war, when you already have 2 generals that have been killed in a war that was supposed to be a mop-up operation, and heaven knows how many Russian soldiers have been killed, perhaps 3, perhaps 5, perhaps 10,000. It's hard to say right now. And you have arms pouring in, and also, Ed Luce, A Brit would understand the importance of this. Zelensky, very much still alive. Churchillian, and I will say it fits him better than anybody since Churchill himself in the Battle of Britain. Here you have this Churchillian figure who's been hiding underground over the past several weeks, coming upstairs, walking into his presidential office and saying, I am very much here. He gave his address. We are not afraid. We will continue to fight. We are not going anywhere.
Churchill with a social media account.
That's right.
is quite a combination, and not only popping up, everywhere, but actually saying where he is. Bankover Street, his offices. I am not afraid. You know where I am. I am not going anywhere. My family are here. We are not moving until we've won this war. It's impossible to sort of overstate the morale boosting, the morale stirring effect of this on the Ukrainian population and on the Ukrainian resistance. Whilst you have a leader alive who's saying this, Russia cannot possibly hope to subdue the Ukrainian population. And so my great fear is they want to get him. And so when he says, you know where I am, I'm not moving, I'm not afraid, that is deeply admirable. It's also a risk.
Right. And again, explaining the importance of one side being so bought in to a war of liberation against another side that did not even know that they were going into combat, that most thought were just going to exercises, can't be overstated. And again, going back to the Battle of Britain, even in the worst moments, public opinion polls showed that only 3% of Britons thought that it was possible for them to lose the war. You talk to Ukrainians now, it's the same thing. Things are bleak, things are terrible, but Richard Engel and so many others that report from there say the Ukrainians aren't even making it a possibility in their mind that the Russians will ever defeat this country.
I think they understand asymmetric warfare in a way that maybe great powers don't. They keep forgetting.
But can I ask you that question?
Yeah.
Because before they went in, I asked the question, why would Vladimir Putin, after seeing his own country chased out of Afghanistan so many years ago, and after seeing the United States, the country he hates the most, being chased out of Afghanistan in a humiliating way, why would he then, a few months later, place himself in the same position where he's going to be in a country he's not going to be able to subdue? 42 million people. He's not going to be able to subdue it. Supply routes just right across the border from Poland or Romania or from other countries. I mean, he has set himself up for a miserable failure. And again, right after the United States, the folks had been on the U.S., now the whole world looking at Russia. He has made him not only one of the most hated men in the world, but he's also made himself, if you look at the New York Times yesterday, a man whose military is no longer feared by European powers that have spent the last 20 years fearing it.
It's a brilliant question, and I think the only answer can be that he had bad information about Ukraine. I mean, remember, this is a person who is very, very scary. Who doesn't just fire people, he poisons them. We've got transcripts of some of the Russian demonstrators, by the way, leaked and translated into English. There is torture going on of people who have peacefully protested in Russia. So he's a scary guy. People tell him what he wants to hear. His circles got ever narrower. And I suspect what they told him is, and it's what by the way, the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church said in a sermon yesterday. They told him, he said, Ukraine is the prodigal son. We're welcoming back the prodigal son into the fold. That's the message that Putin was receiving.
Prodigal
These people
son
don't have a national
back
identity.
to the fold.
That's a bunch of BS. We know that they're Russians. They are Slavic brothers, and they will not resist. So he's stumbled into another Afghanistan because people are scared to tell him the truth. Or maybe His intelligence is so skewed, it didn't even figure that out.
Well, and one final thing that's obvious.
So anywho, day 13 of the war between Ukraine and Russia. Let's keep watching the news.
And from here, that grand military buildup that he invested all that money in was siphoned off by many military contractor into yachts.
Did everybody have their morning coffee today?
You can look at the military and see how bad
I don't
it
drink
is
coffee.
and understand that there was no quality control. Yesterday, this was a unit after a general got killed, where they were having to borrow SIM cards from Ukrainians, having their information intercepted. They're using commercial GPS devices in airplanes. They're using spare parts in their jets from American commercial aircraft. Totally not secure. You'd be court-martialed in the United States if you did such a thing. It appears to be a third-rate army that can't fight other armies. They can only kill people, whether it's in Grozny or in Kyiv.
There's been a lot of corruption. It's a lot of hollowing out. One thing we should be very, very wary of and aware of is that in these military reforms Russia has been undertaking in the last few years, they've incorporated tactical battlefield nuclear weapons. They've integrated that into their military doctrine.
Quick question. What's the difference between wary and aware? I'll Google it up. I'll tell you about that because I think he just said two of the same words. Said we got to be wary and aware.
Lower yield nuclear weapons that can be used in
wary and aware. I get it. Yeah, I answered my own question.
Battlefield quite early on into conventional warfare. My fear is the more his conventional forces are shown up as hollow, demoralized, underfunded, the more that option becomes a viable one in Putin's mind.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel.
Yep.
You can follow up on today's top stories and break.
And that was from NBC. Sometimes all of these news organizations are all weird. NBC, CBS, freaking. Here's one that's live right here. So let's check this out.
When it comes
Fox
to the
News.
U.S.
Fox News. Yep. Everybody's against Fox News. All that shit. Let's see. And I don't even know. That was like
when it
a
comes to the U.S.
30-second video. Let's go to YouTube and type in Russian invasion. There it is. Putin's endgame. Some people say Putin. Some people say Putin.
There's a lot that we love about our Oscars.
This is live.
Yeah, except for Scoop.
Let's check this out.
Are you considering taking a coding boot camp? Believe it or not, the best way to become a full-time developer is to
zoom more. Let's go for it. You know, we've got the upper hand. Let's continue. Let's send in more mercenaries. Let's pump in more military equipment. Let's go. Let's go get them.
These
you know, this approach,
weird, but,
I feel, Charles, is fraught with risks, and it's not very diplomatic.
Not very diplomatic.
Charles,
I would say, Arnav, that the U.S. and its allies have found what I think is just about the right line of giving military support, political support, economic support to Ukraine, but not crossing a line. Biden said, we're not going to war with Ukraine. We are not giving to the Ukrainians types of weaponry that we think would lead to an escalation to World War III. So it's a fine line, but I think it's the right line. And Biden has said, we will defend every inch of NATO territory. But let me just make two additional points that I think are important here. One, I agree with Laura that one big potential pushback against Putin is the people of Russia. This is not a popular war in Russia. Friends of mine, high-ranking Russians, are speaking out against Putin. This really is a game changer in terms of Russian politics. Could they get rid of Putin? No, maybe, I don't know, but this is new, and I think we should keep an eye on it. The other issue is China. And maybe our Chinese colleague could weigh in here.
Right.
China is really Russia's lifeline for money, to buy oil, to help deal with the economic collapse. If anybody has a lot of influence on Putin, it's Xi Jinping. We need China to step up to the plate.
Okay, should I get a response from Victor, please? Victor?
I will be happy to say that.
Burzin, can you come in after Victor, please? Because I want Victor to respond to his point. I'll come to you after that. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. China stands for peace, and China urges all the parties directly involved and indirectly involved to resort to negotiation and diplomacy. We should not pour more fuel onto the fire in Ukraine. Secondly, China respects the authority of the United Nations Security Council. China will abide by any sanctions endorsed and approved by the United Nations Security Council. Now, if there are other countries which want to impose sanctions on Russia, be my guest. But if you want to force China to join you in your sanctions against Russia, then you are overreaching. You are overstepping. Why? Because you are an independent foreign country. China is an independent country. China can decide for itself and by itself what international position it wants to adopt. China-Russia relations are very close. We share a common border, 4,700 kilometers. No one can seal off that common border between China and Russia.
What the hell is that? Did you see that? Homeboy was inside of a pool, and then it was like doing the crucifix. And, and he's in a pool that's shaped like a cross. So what, without a priest, was he trying to baptize himself or something? So weird.
Right now, we need to really do earnest diplomacy to de-escalate rather than escalate, to bring mankind from the brink of nuclear disaster, rather than continue to push all of us, mankind.
You mentioned nuclear disaster the third time.
Right. And what about the Budapest
Why do you keep
memorandum?
mentioning nuclear disaster? He says, what about the Budapest Agreement?
Now they're going to start talking
China
about
is
what
reticent to do anything, Arnab. Let's face it.
It's all quiet.
No, they won't. They won't. But let's also face it. What if China offers and China has the ability to absorb, if for a short to medium term, Russia's economic losses. What if it does that and says that for the global realignment that we want, we're going to absorb the losses? What will you do?
China can eye Russian sources as a resource for itself in its current circumstances, but China does not have the capacity to absorb Russian gas. There is simply no piping capacity currently for it to do so, even if Putin throws all the gas that he wishes to. So Riyadh and Tehran still remain Beijing's first and second suppliers. Moscow is third, and it will not supersede them in the medium or long-term future. And just remember, Arnab, that Sino-Russian trade stands at $87 billion. China's global trade stands at $950 billion, and China is recipient of westward indirect inward investment.
I hear that.
To jeopardize relations with us once sanctions are imposed.
Boris Johnson is speaking now. UK House of Commons after Zelensky. Let's hear him. Let's go live, 30 seconds.
So this is a moment for us to put our political differences aside, Mr. Speaker, and I know I speak for the whole House when I say that Britain and our allies are determined to press on with supplying our Ukrainian friends with the weapons they need to defend their homeland as they deserve. to press on with tightening the economic vice around Vladimir Putin, and we will stop importing Russian oil, Mr. Speaker. And my right honourable friend, the Business Secretary, will update the House on that tomorrow. And we will employ every method that we can, diplomatic, humanitarian and economic, Mr. Speaker, until Vladimir Putin has failed in this disastrous venture and Ukraine is free once more.
That's Boris Johnson speaking. In the British Parliament, I'm going back right now, and Nikolai, the quicker bet that everyone seems to be taking here is put the pressure on the Russian economy, put the pressure on the Russian people, and then the Russian people will unseat Putin. There'll be too much pressure on him. If that happens, if it's a question of his political existence, if it is, what will Putin do?
If you allow me to speak, I can tell you that there are two things. There are sanctions against ordinary people, ordinary Russians, and there are sanctions against Russian army, armed forces. And I can tell you that sanctions for the time being, they hit ordinary Russian people. They don't hit Russian forces. Armed forces, because armed forces are absolutely isolated from ordinary people and from our, let's say, joint economy. It has almost everything made in Russia, almost everything, missiles, tanks, weapons, automatic guns, etc., etc. Everything is done in Russia. It uses
but what about your economy? What about jobs? What about the people? What about protests? Dov, no.
It uses Russian soldiers. If you put sanctions against Russia, it means you put sanctions against ordinary people. That is most important thing. Not on Putin. You put sanctions against other Muscovites, other Russians. Not against Russian army. I'm sorry, not against Russian army, because it is fully independent.
No, but is the Russian... No, one second, one minute. The Russian army is made up of Russians, and the Russian army cannot completely be isolated from what the Russian people go through. Dov, here our guest from Moscow is making a big difference between the Russian army and the Russian people. He seems to be saying the sanctions will have no effect on the military plans. Dov.
Absolutely, you're right. Absolutely.
Let me speak now. Of course they will. The Russian army is full of conscripts. It's not a professional army. It's a bunch of young men who have been drafted and who are close to their families, and half of whom, if not more than half, don't even know why they're in Ukraine. Those sanctions are going to affect their families, and we know that a lot of Russians soldiers are already trying to avoid actual battle. I also want to say something to my Chinese friend. The whole argument that you're waiting for a Security Council resolution on sanctions when you know fully well that Russia will veto any such resolution means that China is playing a double game. And if China really wants peace and really wants negotiations, then what China should do is she must tell Putin that he must stop. He must stop bombing families. He must stop bombing buildings. He must stop bombing institutions and really talk. And then China could indeed say, look, we're not going to help you economically if you're not going to stop bombing. But if you wait for a Security Council resolution, you're speaking with double speak, because you know Russia will veto every single one of those. Look at the General Assembly vote. Boom. 141 countries condemned Russia. Where was China?
Let me make several points. When you talk about the United States...
Victor, we have Victor and Farshid on the right. Yes, please, Victor.
Yeah, they were talking, the American was talking, and the China view ended up exiting. I wonder why. Because they didn't give China a chance to defend.
From mostly Western positions. Secondly, what China stands for is exactly for saving more lives in Ukraine. If there are countries which keep providing weapons, pour more fuel onto the fire, you will lead to more lives being lost for the Ukraine. I hope when the dust settles, and it has to settle, there will be Ukrainians surviving this disaster. Rather than you urge the Ukrainians to die, and then you stand on the other side of the shore without suffering any damage to your skin. This is the time to save Ukrainians in decency, in honor, rather than urging the Ukrainians to be destroyed by war. We need to stop the war rather than urging the Ukrainians to die. In American military, you never allow prisoners to die like the former imperialists, the Japanese soldiers. You always urge your prisoners to surrender rather than die, because there will always be a better day. This is the point for Ukraine. Ukraine need to wake up. Those who have your weapons may not be serving your lives. This is the key.
Arnab, can I?
Jalbakshi,
Arnab, may I?
A minute left on the debate tonight.
Arnab, I'd like to point out one thing.
Yes.
Arnab, I'd like to point out one thing in all earnestness as a military veteran and as a human being. We are getting very perilously close to disaster. It is in the interests of all.
Yes,
global economies are coming out of the shock of COVID. They're coming out of the shock of COVID. You know, when we were fighting in Bangladesh, we got a lot of help from our Soviet friends. But one thing they kept on telling us was, hurry it up, hurry it up, hurry it up. Today, the same advice we will give to our Russian friends. Please get it over with. The world cannot afford this any longer. The Ukrainian people will suffer the most.
2 weeks is too long.
Russia to the last Ukrainian.
Yeah. 2 weeks is too long.
And it should be the earliest possible. We must
2 weeks
go
is
in
too
for
long.
a ceasefire.
I agree with you on that. I'll just say this. No, I'll say this. I'll say this, General Bakshi, if the intent of the Russians was the recognition of Crimea, DPR, LPR by Ukraine, and Zelensky has expressed his intent to find a solution, then I think Russia has achieved its military objective. 2 weeks is too long. Anything further is going to be absolute disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, big breaking news from Ukraine, biggest reporting team on the ground, and of course, the fastest news updates on the war, both on live streaming and on our channel.
Wow, that was actually a good stream. I was tripping on that one. All right, what is this? Live, let's see. What is France 24 saying? Oh, just telling you got 5 seconds
must become
of
energy
commercials.
producers. We can also increase the production and import of renewable hydrogen.
Now, Ketevan, that's not the big announcement of a total ban the way Joe Biden is doing it, or a phasing out as Boris Johnson is doing it. Joe Biden, he addressed during his remarks the question by some that, oh, this is the beginning of a rift within the alliance.
Exactly. The White House really is focused on really explaining why there is the sort of different approach between the U.S. and its European allies on this issue after they've been really touting how coordinated their efforts were throughout the past weeks and even months. And we already heard that from the White House even before the announcement. Jen Psaki in a press briefing was saying that we should not look at these decisions with the same prism that we've been looking at other decisions on sanctions. And Joe Biden, as you said, reiterated that, really acknowledged the fact and explained to the American people why the U.S. was in a position to do such a ban and why the Europeans might find it more difficult, because the Europeans are so much more dependent on Russian energy, and because the Americans are not that dependent, because he repeated and reminded everyone the Americans are very large producers of oil, but they also really import most of their energies from other countries. The overall energy coming from Russia to the United States is just under 10%, and oil is just 3% of U.S. imports. So he really wanted to make clear that this was
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. So let's try to find something else, because that froze.
Because their positions were very different, and it was not something that showed a rift between allies. It was something that they discussed, and he decided to take the step for the Americans. And he also said that he and the United States were going to do as much as they can to help the Europeans phase out that dependence on Russian energy. The Americans were actually looking at some different venues to really shore up the production of oil around the world, even with some very odd partners, if you will.
Oh,
welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I have some irrefutable proof that Citadel is creating synthetic shares. Today I'm going to show you the statements of a fund that isn't creating synthetics, and then compare those to Citadel's. So stay tuned and let's make some money. And now I'm going to dive straight in with the key information. So, I made a video a few days ago that explained my background in the accounting industry. Before I started making videos here on YouTube, I actually worked as an accountant for many, many years. Therefore, I'm fairly good at digesting financial statements just like these. So today I want to compare the financial statements of Citadel Securities, a fund that I believe is creating synthetic shares, and I want to compare those to the financials of Susquehanna Financial, a fund that I believe, from this information at least, is not creating any synthetics. Now I don't know if these are the financials for the full Susquehanna fund or just one individual department, but from this information, this department at least does not appear to be creating any synthetics. Maybe there's other departments within Susquehanna that do create the synthetics, but these financial statements alone do not suggest any synthetics because they look vastly different to the Citadel financials. So let's start by refreshing our mind and looking at the financial statements of Citadel Securities. The first big number that jumps out is these securities owned at fair value for around $73 billion. The next big giant number that jumps out is these securities sold, not yet repurchased at fair value, or shares that have been shorted of $65 billion.
Are you drinking coffee wrong? Coffee is
and
one of the
there you
healthiest
go,
things you can
another
put in your body.
commercial.
In fact, some studies have...
Skip
now there's also
that.
another 4.
I truly hate commercials. They try to go out there and, I don't know, sponsor. Like, hey, do you want to sponsor this channel? Or here's another one. Here, watch. I got it. I'll do it. Here, watch. Okay, welcome to my channel. This is the channel owner, and this is my little PSA, or my public service announcement, which is basically, if you like what you're checking out, then push that like button, subscribe, I'll dare ya. And then also, you know, donations are definitely appreciated, but they're not mandatory. And if you're thinking about where to donate to, and I want to let you know this, you're not donating so that you could support the Ukraine. You're not donating so that you can have world peace. You're not donating to save the homeless or do anything else. What you're donating to is this particular channel for whatever reason I want to spend the money. Which to me is like trying to save up for an iPhone. My car recently got stolen, so I'm trying to save up for that. Let's see. Just, I mean, literally whatever. If I want to go out and buy a beer, that's what you're supporting. Okay? So if you want to do that, where do you donate to? Well, here you go. Boom, right there. Cash App. There's the cash tag. WALHFMF. I know it sounds really weird. It sounds like, but what it is it's with a little help from my friends. See? All right, so Cash App, cash tag, WALHFMF. All right, well, that being said, let's get back to watching the news on this watch party.
1.5 billion of securities sold under agreements to later repurchase, and therefore they've got a total short position in this entity of Citadel of around $70 billion. Now, the thing that really jumps out here to me is this line here for securities borrowed. They've only located and borrowed $1.8 billion worth of shares, but their total short position is around $70 billion. $70 billion less the $2 billion worth of shares that have been located and borrowed leaves like $68 billion worth of shares that have been shorted without first locating those shares. AKA that's $68 billion worth of failed to deliver and synthetic shares that have been created, and those failed to delivers have never been satisfied or never appropriately been closed out. Maybe the official FTD has been closed out and reset using the options chain or using some other brokers. Or maybe this is $68 billion worth of naked calls that have been sold or naked puts that have been purchased. But regardless of whichever way you look at it, that's still $70 billion worth of short positions that Citadel holds, and they've only located around $2 billion worth of those securities, and they've only borrowed $2 billion of them. Now, if we compare and contrast this to the financial statements of Susquehanna, we can see something massively different. Now, the first big number that jumps out in the Susquehanna financial statements is this $1 billion receivable from clearing brokers. This is $1 billion worth of assets held on behalf of Susquehanna by other brokers, like prime brokers, for example. Obviously, Susquehanna.
Sometimes I watch these videos and they make sense. Other times I watch them and I'm totally confused. So, yeah, take everything with a grain of salt. All these people are entertainers, not financial advisors. Alright, but I'm looking at all of these different things. Meet Kevin is another channel that I like watching every now and then. He's already uploaded 3 new videos, so we're just going to check out one, and I like skimming through these.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car.
I hate the commercials, though. I wish there was a way to
Okay, you ready?
ad block this
100.
shit.
This video is brought to you by FTX. Learn more about FTX, a link down below where you can incorporate trading views, trading indicators with your cryptocurrency trading at FTX and get free crypto via the link down below when you sign up. All right, folks, let's go through what Joe Biden just said and what its impacts could be for the United States economy. What do we think about the Keystone Pipeline? What do we think, is that ever going to actually come back online, or the potential for that fourth phase? What are, could these high oil prices lead to a recession? What are companies doing in response to what Joe Biden's talking about? Let's break it all down in this video. So first, Joe Biden just came out and told us that we are now banning all imports of Russian oil, energy, and natural gas. No more oil will be accepted at our ports. This comes, by the way, at the same time as other European countries are not going as far. However, the United Kingdom is banning Russian oil, but keeping natural gas imports for the time being. Joe Biden says this is in consultation with European allies. However, some of them are more reliant on Russian oil and natural gas than we are. Joe Biden reiterates that we are a net exporter of energy goods, and therefore we can, whereas maybe they can't. Now, he does suggest that this will impact gas prices, that gas prices are going to go up, and that he's doing everything he can do to sort of minimize the pain on Americans while at the same time inflicting further pain on Putin. And of course, he decries the atrocities that are happening in Ukraine due to Putin's war. He says that this is a method of defending freedom, and defending freedom costs money. And we, of course, are going to continue providing defensive weapons to Ukraine, which I always thought that phrase was interesting. Like, as an assault rifle, a defensive rifle. I get what he's saying, obviously. Stinger missiles to defend against air assaults, javelins to defend against invading tanks. I get it. Just kind of a weird phrase. But anyway, Germany, Finland, Netherlands, they're also providing weapons. Going to reiterating again the NATO commitment, the Article 5 commitment that an attack on one would be an attack on all. This is why we're boosting how many troops we have on those NATO borders. But when it comes here to some of the other comments that he made, he mentions that we're going to release about 60 million barrels of oil from our joint oil reserves with other countries, half of those, about 30 million, coming from the United States. Now, it's worth noting that the United States uses about 20 million barrels of oil per day. So really, this seems like a little bit of a rounding error, I hate to say it, if it's like 3 days worth of supply. Although the thesis is that maybe that'll help blunt, just if we focus all of that on, let's say, gas prices, maybe that'll help blunt gas prices a little bit. What was it? The European Commission estimated that globally, every dollar increase in the price of gas, we see global GDP drop by about $400 billion per year. So huge impacts that rising oil and gas prices could actually have to consumers.
Gasoline in Los Angeles yesterday was $6.99 a gallon. Oh my gosh. $6.99 a gallon. This whole delay thing that I'm listening to on my headphones really makes me talk kind of weird, so I have to actually pull one piece of the headphones out of my ear to listen to myself without a delay so that I don't start sounding funny. So weird. But anyways, yeah, $6.99 a gallon. We should check out Gas Buddy or whatever. What's the most expensive gas in all of America? I don't know. Let's ask Siri. Yeah, it says California, so hold up. Most expensive gas in all of America. These are the 10 most expensive states on the hill with gas. Okay, let's check this out. This is from the hill. Yeah, this is old news. California 534. Well, no, that's about right. Okay, so on a national average, you're probably looking at like $5. $5 a gallon right now. If gas was like $6.99 in Los Angeles, then yeah, you're definitely looking at that for sure. Okay, back to YouTube.
Consumers in our markets, and that's what we got to talk about next, going beyond what Joe Biden said. Joe Biden, so we're going to talk about that right after I finish this last thing from Biden here. Biden did also mention, he brought up the value of the ruble right now, which it's just sort of worth seeing that. He mentioned that the ruble is now worth less than 1 penny. So when you try to convert it to the dollar, but it's actually even worse than that. Take a look at this particular chart right here. So this is the last year of how many rubles it takes to get to a dollar here. If you just go to the last month here, you can see how we broke 100 when 100 rubles for a dollar when the war started, and it's just kept going up. It's that is, the Russian currency has lost more and more money as time has gone on here. So their economy is really going to be reeling here, especially with all of the companies that are now refusing, of course, to do business there. Biden mentioned some of these. We already know a lot of these: Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Apple, Ford, Nike, others like Hermes, H&M, IKEA, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. A lot of companies really smashing on Russia here for this. But what do we know about companies, and what does Joe Biden say about companies? Well, he talks about these two problems that we have. He believes that, number one, that companies should really be producing more oil, and that right now, instead of producing more oil, they're really more like price gouging us by increasing, by essentially allowing these price increases to happen rather than producing more oil. And it's true. I mean, off the peak of our highest oil rig count, our oil rig count is slowly growing, like the number of online oil rigs that we have, but it's nowhere near the peak that we used to have. I think we're at about half as many oil rigs that are actually online right now. And this morning we got a couple comments from different CEOs. One is Occidental's CEO, Vicky Hullab. This is, by the way, the company that Warren Buffett just took a 10% stake in, and so there's been a lot of retail flow into energy stocks. In fact, just yesterday, $340 million of retail money went into these oil stocks, probably following the coattails a little bit of Warren Buffett here. But the Occidental CEO mentions that what they're going to do with these extra profits that they're getting from high oil and gas prices is they're going to pay off their debt. It's too complicated right now to expand supply because supply chain issues are too hard. And that makes it really hard for them to grow US oil production. And what they're going to do is they're going to make sure they preserve as much cash as they need to so that when the oil cycle goes down again and oil prices go down again, they could still send dividends to their shareholders during those down cycles. So in other words, here you go. You've got the CEO of a company that Warren Buffett just took a 10% stake in, disclosing in England.
This Amazon truck works for Sean.
All right,
this
there's
is Sean.
another commercial.
And that Amazon
right
truck
there.
makes Sean
Everybody
over.
hates commercials.
Then no, we're not.
I hate commercials too. That's totally bogus. Yep. But you know what? While Kevin was talking, I ended up checking out. Let me see if I can do this. This is the screen source. All right. Well, I ended up checking out the stock market. And if we start looking at this, oh wow, look at that. Positions, all that stuff. I got some money in different things. Currently right now, Bitcoin. Why don't, it's only like a viewing mode? I don't know. Hold up here. Will it? Yeah, okay. I think I can adjust it that way. That's cool. So 39,000 is Bitcoin. Ethereum is at $2,500. The SPY right now, which is the S&P 500, that's up of only 1% right now. No real movers and shakers like that. I don't know what's going on with the oil companies. I know I'm in. Oh wow, look at Nvidia. 2% up there. Big mover and shaker today, it looks like right now currently is Facebook. Yep, the Meta platforms. Now everybody else was talking about a couple of other stocks. GME is up 7% today. That's good. GameStop. Go GameStop. SQ is up 5% currently right now on the day. Let's see, DWAC, no, SQQ. Wow, that's a big drop, 5% there. Let me see. Well, let's look at the ones I'm invested in. I don't have much money. AMC, go AMC. AMC is up 3%. NEO is up almost 2%. So it's a green day. Avalanche, cryptocurrency, that's up 4%. And then good old Shiba Inu, feed the SHIB. It's still in a downtrend. For now, it's downtrending, but that climb is going to be pretty freaking epic when it actually starts jumping upwards. So, yeah, just buy and hold. All right. Anyways, so that's what's going on there. Now what we can do is jump right back over here to the TV and continue watching me, Kevin.
We're not going to produce more oil. We're going to send more money to our shareholders. Saudi Aramco's CEO blamed a lot of this oil price disaster, obviously being accelerated by Ukraine, but blamed part of it on the mixed signals we're getting from politicians like Biden. Are we going to ban oil? Are we not going to ban oil? So I thought that was kind of interesting. But what you notice with the CEOs is none of them are saying, oh yeah, we're going to ramp up production. They're actually telling us they're not going to ramp up production, and they're using this to sort of clean up their balance sheets and send more money to shareholders. So I think Biden's calls here for U.S. companies to produce more oil are just falling on deaf ears. He does talk about becoming more energy independent, loosening regulation will not lower oil prices, he says, which we're going to talk about the Keystone Pipeline in a moment. I definitely want to talk about that. We're going to talk about the economic impacts of this. But Biden uses this as another opportunity to talk about passing things like Build Back Better and providing tax credits for electric vehicles and winterizing homes. He says that'll help. Personally, I hate to say it, but there are a lot of homes that were built post-World War II where people are like, oh, I'm going to put dual-paned windows in. And the house doesn't even have insulation in the walls, which inherently is almost worthless. I mean, it helps a little bit, don't get me wrong. A wall's obviously thicker than a single pane window. And if you go to a double pane, there's some level of improvement. But a lot of homes are just, they were just built poorly, right, compared to how we build homes today. That is a good thing. But yeah, look, at the same time as we've got these high energy prices, climate change is also a big issue. You know, the IPCC just released a 3,000-page report talking about these profound shifts in the climate, about not just heat waves and hurricanes and storms and flooding. I mean, look at Australia. You had dozens of people killed in floods in Australia. You see the fires in California or whatever. But they also do mention that better building codes for new construction are actually starting to help have an effect, which is very good. So I think one of the things that is worth now thinking about is how could these potential higher oil prices affect the market? And there's some charts that I want to show us here. So this morning, there was a writer over at Bloomberg who put together their thoughts, and I'll give you a summary here. They kind of looked at the past oil shocks, and they noticed something that really has to happen in an oil shock for an oil shock alone to cause a recession. And what they say is it all comes down to energy spending as a percentage of income. This I thought was very interesting. So we'll go ahead and pull this graph up right here. So that is right here. Energy spending as a percentage of income. So the white line here is the household spending on energy as a percentage of income. The blue line, which we can't see right now because I'm in the way, is an estimate because we don't have the official numbers yet. But it's worth looking back just to get sort of a bearing here on this chart here. Look back at the early 80s right here. And take a look at this. We spent about 10 to 11% of our wages on energy back during the Paul Volcker era, right? If you look back to the 1990s, as an example, right here, so sort of the turn of the century, 90 to 94-ish, we were spending somewhere around 7 to 9% on energy. And in 2008, during the recession there, we also peaked above 10% again. If we go over here to the estimate of where energy spending is now, you can see it looks like right now we're sitting around potentially, the blue line's just an estimate, around 8%. And the last...
Let's check this shit out. Oh. More commercials. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blah.
Yeah, Joseph, you're right. We got this.
Boss Blunts.
It's just unfortunate that, you know, many people out there are not.
I gotta do Boss Blunts.
So,
we gotta turn off the music for a sec because he's got his own
savvy
background music.
Or willing, or have that risk appetite to be able to take on such an endeavor, and that's all right. But they're gonna also have to deal with things like the highest food prices we've ever seen in our lifetimes and in most people's lifetimes, especially with inflation coming on and the issues that we've currently got going with oil, with Biden's banning of Russian oil and energy in the United States. It is going to cause diesel, jet fuel to skyrocket, as well as the cost of gas.
Get ready, people.
I never thought we might actually see $10 a gallon at the pump, but that's very likely at this point. If
$10
oil
a gallon
gets to $200 a barrel, that would be about $15 per gallon. I know a lot of you noticed your fuel prices go up overnight, yesterday or the day before, 10, 20, 30, 40 cents. I know in places like LA right now, gas is over $6, $7, and it's actually happening. I'm sad to say. It's very bittersweet. These are failures to deliver by the United States Treasury. If you're unaware, I can't really make this much larger. So you're just going to have to see here that this bar is for February 28th, 2022, and it is the high that we haven't seen in a long time. It's higher than it's been in the entirety of this chart of the last 2 years, at $76.125 trillion. I'm sorry, $76.125 billion worth of failures to deliver alone by the U.S. Treasury. Why on February 28th? Because this T+2 data, which is reported on February 28th, actually occurred on February 26th. And on February 26th, the S&P 500, the SPY, had a 13% red candle. And in the same minute, the plunge protection team spent between $20 and $50 billion to sell naked shorts, puts on the VIX, the volatility index. This created a gamma ramp and a gamma squeeze on the SPY. It caused futures and volume traders to buy anything on the S&P or the SPY or positive equities other than short positions on the SPY, because of the vast amount of puts that were sold naked by the Federal Reserve. I'm sorry, should I say by the U.S. Treasury as an unnamed buyer. The plunge protection team is the only entity in the world that can spend that amount of money and be named as an unnamed buyer on the United States stock markets. If it was a family office, it would have the name of the office. If it was a hedge fund, it would have the name of the hedge fund. If it was a bank, it would have the name of the bank. Nobody, except for the plunge protection team, can save the market and make a purchase or a sell order of $10 to $50 billion worth of naked shorts on the volatility index and be named as an unnamed buyer on the documentation, except for the plunge protection team, which is led by the one and only old Yeller, Janet Yellen. Who else sits on the board of the plunge protection team? Gary Gensler.
That's right.
And Jerome Powell.
Gary Gensler, yep. Jerome Powell.
Do you understand what this means? This means when the shorts on the VIX need to be covered, the S&P is gonna fucking tank. It's gonna fucking tank. Because there's billions and billions and billions, no, actually, I'm sorry, trillions of dollars worth of naked shorts and shorts that puts that the Fed owns on the VIX, the volatility index. And at some point, they need to close out those positions too. This is the everything squeeze.
This is the
VIX
everything
is going to squeeze. The S&P is going to dump. Precious metals are going to squeeze. Energy is going to squeeze and then dump.
Everything's going to go.
Fucking meme stocks are going to squeeze. And then God knows what the hell's going to happen to commodities and food. They're going to squeeze as well, unfortunately. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have a crystal ball. None of this is financial advice. On that note, I wish everybody peace and wealth and good fucking luck. We're going to be so
I like
fucking
Boss
rich.
Blunts. He's awesome. All right. Well, anyways, if you guys haven't checked this out, subscribe to his channel too. His videos are fun when you get bored. More commercials, I hate that shit. But yeah, I take everything with a grain of salt with this guy. Not only this guy, but just literally everybody, because you know, it is what it is. All right, so that right there. Oh, this chick right here, she's funny.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Right now we're looking at some entitled influencers that want to pay an exposure. We all know what that means. It means nothing. It means they want it for free. It means they won't pay you anything. Yo man, what's good? Your tats are fire, but you could really use more followers. I'm an up and coming influencer and model, and I would be willing to collab and shout you out on my Insta and get you tons of exposure in trade for some ink. I want 2 arm sleeves, but we can discuss that later. Let me know. I'm not an expert on tattoos because I don't have any, but I feel like that's like thousands of dollars of work that you're asking for free.
I'm sorry, for exposure?
Lol, okay. Exposure doesn't pay the bills, my guy. I tattoo plenty of people with more reach and influence than you, and they don't ask for free. That's what's up! Also, you've got less than 1/5 of the followers that I do. How about you do something for me in exchange for exposure? Let me know. LMK. LMK. And that is how it's done. Scene. Hey, scene, you saw that? Seems like you read that. Nothing to say anymore? You had so much to say a second ago. And this is your reminder that the world don't owe you. Also a reminder that exposure doesn't pay the bills. And also a reminder to subscribe. This video is sponsored by Filmora. Wondershare Filmora has just released their new version, Filmora 11. The interface, UI, design, and editing features, it's all been upgraded. The Filmora team launched a challenge.
I trip on some of these videos. They're weird. All right, what's this one? American Idol. Okay. I'm an American Idol fan. Yes, I am. I have been an American Idol fan.
Hey, it's Kennedy Anderson here. I'm 17 years old and I live in Crozet, Virginia. And today for my audition for American Idol, I sung Lady Gaga's Applause.
Supermodel.
When I walked into that room, I think there was just nothing going on in my mind because I didn't think that it was real. It was just unbelievable to be there because I've always dreamed of going on that stage. During my song, when I was singing, I looked up at the judges and I could see some positive feedback, some smiling. So that gave me confidence, and then it was a good turnout, so it felt great to see those smiling faces.
Next.
The sheer magnitude of the waste and scrap problem, the magnitude of batteries that need to get recycled is, I think, shocking to most people.
With these cobalt-free batteries, they operate at higher voltage, and that's one reason why they are more susceptible to battery fires.
Lithium A&E, what you got here?
If you're learning the code, I can almost guarantee that you're taking the long road instead of the shortest path.
Python
and
is
frankly,
the best
that should
way to
terrify
decode
you.
Perhaps he had tapes on everybody. The first time I looked up at the two screens he had for the TV in the bedroom, and I realized it was me. I'm like,
oh,
whoa,
this is the whole
what are you doing?
Yeah.
And when we started bringing other people into the bedroom.
Not interested in that right now. Ken Griffin's plane. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the plane that flies around the world all the time with the owner of Citadel or whatever, one of the people at Citadel. This guy is like a major crime lord, apparently. Yeah. See, and they got all the little memes and everything else about him right there. But yeah, this is a constant channel saying where the hell this criminal is going. It's a trippy channel. I kind of like the music too. They got some good loud ambient music there. All that good stuff that you can listen to on your phone. Alright, enough of that. Next.
On December 2021, this was tweeted at Elon Musk. A day later, he replied with this: recession. Recessions cause some of the worst market crashes in history, and the word itself is enough to cause fear and panic in the streets. So why does Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the whole world, hope to see a lot more of it? After studying him and other famed investors for years, I now know why. But first, is an economic recession and market crash really on the way? And probably what you're way more interested in is how can you profit off of one? The past couple of years have been chaotic, to say the least. The illness was a catalyst that led us to the current economic situation of labor constraints, exponential housing prices, supply chain issues, international tension, political instability, uncertain economic growth, and record inflation. But what does this all lead up to? Check this out. The current inflation rate is over 7%. It is the hottest since 1982, and it's no secret that the Fed knows that this number is way too high, which is why they're planning to increase interest rates this year. But there might be something even more sinister waiting on the other side because of this. Dealing with interest rates is like Doctor Strange playing around with time. It requires a very fine balance at work. Otherwise, okay, let's pause. First, you need to understand the two main impacts that interest rates can have on the world economy. Lowering interest rates makes borrowing money cheaper, increases spending, and speeds up the economy, which is what the Fed did and wanted during shutdowns. Raising interest rates makes borrowing money more expensive, reduces spending, and slows down the economy. But what if the economy isn't ready for a change? Seriously, did anyone bother asking her if she's cool with it? Pulling the interest rates lever ultimately comes down to perfect timing. If the Fed increases interest rates too quickly before the economy is ready for it, it could cause a chain reaction that tanks the domestic and global economy. But surely the Fed is aware of this and they're going to be very, very careful, right? Well, not necessarily. This chart shows the number of recessions or financial crises after historic interest rate hikes. The 1980 recession, saving and loan crisis, housing market bust, automotive industry crisis, 1990s recession, tech bubble bust, Great Recession, housing bubble bust. The Fed hasn't always been the best in handling this type of situation, but I guess neither was Dr. Strange. But listen, recessions aren't just about interest rates. It's also about this other thing. The definition of a recession is when GDP declines in 2 successive quarters, and GDP is the total value of everything produced in a country over a given period of time. Therefore, we'll need to look closer at the GDP data, and thankfully, the latest GDP numbers were astounding. In Q4 of 2021, GDP surged an impressive 6.9%, closing out the year with a 5.7% annualized increase compared to 2020, where GDP actually declined 3.4%. So we're good, right? Cool, I'm out. Not so fast. Check this out. There's something the media is hiding from you in this data, and here's where it gets really interesting. Most of the year-end GDP gain, about 4.9 of the 6.9% or 71% of it, was actually fueled by businesses stocking up on inventory and not necessarily from consumer demand. If we look at the ISM manufacturing data, yes, we're seeing new manufacturing orders still being placed, but that growth in new orders is slowing down substantially. In fact, Wall Street and smart money are also becoming more pessimistic about how much the US will grow in 2022. Goldman Sachs slashes full-year growth forecast from 3.8 to 3.2%. Bank of America knocked it down from 4 to 3.6%, and Wells Fargo cut it from 4.4 to 3.9%. These numbers aren't looking great, and it definitely does not make me a positive Peter about the short-term future of the United States. But still, it's not just interest rates and GDP that we need to examine. There's one more thing that is commonly viewed as the leading indicator of recessions and has preceded every US recession over the last 50 years.
WeAreMech.com. We're building a metaverse
and another
game
commercial.
where every single player
I
owns a
hate
mech
commercials.
inside of
You
the
hate
game.
commercials. We all hate commercials.
The yield curve. The yield curve shows you what happens.
But we do like making our own commercials. So I'll put it to you this way, people. Here, let's take away this part. Boom. That would be my camera. Let's go over there and take away this one. Boom. All right. I have been broadcasting for 1 hour. So here's my commercial. And then I'll do a little bit more broadcasting. I'll take a break by going out for the walk and, taking the dog out and going to the pantry and grabbing some food and running a couple of errands and missions, and then coming back, and maybe I'll spin a set or do something else. I don't know. But here's my commercial. I dare you to like and subscribe. Donations are definitely appreciated, but they're not mandatory. And once again, there's the Cash App. Simple, easy. What the heck? If you feel like donating. If you don't, I don't really care. Not mandatory. All right. So, that's already done right there. So let's go back to turning on this. Yeah.
If you buy a U.S. government bond, specifically the different interest rates that you would receive
playing around with
over
this software
different
after
time horizons. Like if you held the bond for 5 months or 5 years.
Turns out
Normally,
to be pretty
you'd
cool.
expect the longer you hold
Not
the
gonna
bond,
lie.
the higher the interest rate you would get, which isn't surprising because the longer horizon means the more risk and uncertainty for you. Where it gets dangerous is when this yield curve starts inverting. When it switches, it throws the entire system out of whack, and now means you would get a higher interest rate.
Watch this. I just want you to see something real quick. There's my dog. Yep. She's a sweetheart. Okay, well, got to get out of that again. So
if you held your bond for a shorter period of time, which doesn't make any sense. This inversion happens when investors are feeling very bearish about the future and generally believe that a recession is coming. Now, good news, the yield curve hasn't inverted yet, but there are signs that it is the flattest it's ever been since 2020 and could potentially be inverted soon. Now, I want to make something perfectly clear. I have no idea what I'm talking about, despite having an economics degree and working in finance for a couple of years. No one, absolutely no one, knows when a recession or a market crash is coming. And people have been predicting one for every single year since 2014, 2015, 2016, 17, 18, 19. And still, the S&P 500 has kept chugging along, but given the current economic situation, is now the year when the train stops running. I've studied nearly all the great investors from Baron Rothschild to Warren Buffett, and now I know why Buffett hopes to see a lot more recessions. And it can be summed up perfectly with this quote: "Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy." The legends who profited from the 2008 crash followed these strategies to the T. Despite the stock market falling, housing prices falling, businesses falling, employment falling, savings falling, if we zoom out from this scary graph in 2008, you can see that the crash was just a very small blip in the grand scheme of things. Let's say you had invested $20,000 into the S&P 500 around 2007, before the economic crisis. If you had pulled out your money when everyone else was doing the same around May of 2009, you would have lost around 31% of your money, leaving you with $13,800. But if you had only implemented a fourth of the strategies I'm going to reveal, today you would have close to $50,000. Look, I'm not going to BS you. Profiting during a market crash is easier said than done, because psychologically, when you see red all around the market, you're going to panic and you're going to want to sell. And you go online and it's not going to be much better. You see people chanting sell, sell, sell with plans to re-enter the market when it's not crashing. But here's
I gotta
why
go take the dog out for a piss.
You can't
so if
time
the
the
video
market.
freezes
You're
or whatever,
making
it's just
two
me
really
taking the dog
bold
out.
guesses. One, that you know when the market has reached the bottom and you're able to get out at that exact time. And number two, you know when the market is going to go back up and you buy back in or very near the bottom. And unless you have Mr. Magic Lamp over there, there's no way you can predict the future, and the odds are not in your favor. A study conducted at the University of Michigan measured returns from 1963 through 2004 and found that 96% of the positive returns over that period came from 0.85% of trading days. Separately, one of the top equity analysts in the world, Andrew Stoltz, looked further into this phenomenon. He observed a 10-year period from November 2005 through October 2015 and ran the data through several simulations and concluded that if you missed the 10 best market days over the specified 10-year period, you would stand to lose on average 66% of the gains you would have captured by just staying in the market. In non-fancy speak, the message is when the market moves up, it will move up very, very quickly. And if your money is on the sidelines, you're gonna risk missing out on some of the best days the market has to offer. So stop trying to time the market and stop panicking. But what should you do instead when the streets are on fire? 3 words: dollar cost average, or DCA. It's an investment strategy where you buy X dollars worth of stocks during a fixed interval period. For example, you invest $200 into Microsoft every single month for 5 years. If you're investing a fixed amount of money each time you buy, you get more shares when the stock price is lower and less when the stock price is higher. And over time, this will minimize the cost per share you pay for a given stock. Here's how it works with mathematicals. If you have $300 to invest and you're looking at a very volatile stock called Magic Lamp Incorporated, where in the first month it's $10 per share, in the second month it's $5, in the third month it's $20. Here's where dollar cost averaging comes in. Say you want to invest $100 a month for 3 months. At the end of the 3 months, you bought 10 shares in the first month, 20 shares in the second month, and then 5 shares in the third month. So now you have 35 shares for $300 for an average price per share of $8.57. Your price per share isn't the cheapest at $5 per share, assuming you can tell the future and you bought everything in the second month, but it's also not the most expensive at $20 per share. Now, there are studies that in the long term, it might be more effective to just invest all your money at once as a lump sum to get better returns. However, during a recession and market crash, many challenges pop up in this scenario, especially the psychological fear that makes you panic and prevents you from investing. Which is why I personally believe that DCA during volatile times is a better option than lump sum investing. In fact, there's actually a study that shows during a downturn, people who put all their money at once in the stock market saw a loss of 22.4%, while those who put their money periodically throughout a period of time only saw a loss of 17.6%. Now, a 5% difference in loss averted might not look like much, but if you have $100,000 invested, that would be about a $5,000 difference, which is enough to buy 5,000 $1 cheeseburgers from McDonald's. Okay, but what if you don't want to buy 5,000 cheeseburgers? Fine, whatever, your loss. What should you be investing in, since the key is to continue dollar cost averaging into the stock market? Well, the easiest option is a diversified index fund for some modest potential returns. But what if I told you something very shocking? That not every stock performs poorly during an economic downturn, and there are ways to determine which ones could perform well.
Homeowners, if you are tired of paying too much money for electricity and have a history of paying your bills on time, then you could be eligible for a program that allows you to go solar for...
Think about it. If the recession happened tomorrow, what are you gonna do? You wake up, your boss calls you and says you're fired, you see the stock market crashing, companies are laying people off, there's panic in the street. Do you still go out and buy organic, free-range, vegan-friendly kiwis from Whole Foods? Or do you go to a more affordable place, like Walmart or the dollar store? During the 2008 recession, the #1 performing stock in the S&P 500 was Dollar Tree, with a 1-year return of 60.8%. Compare this to the 2008 return of the S&P 500 of -38%. Walmart also did well, 20% yearly return. H&R Block, a tax preparation company, was 25%. Ross, a cheap clothing company, jumped 17.6%.
Maybe
but
you
the
guys
top
aren't bored of
recurring
that.
industry in the top 10 best performing stocks during the 2008 recession was healthcare stocks. Now,
what's next on the agenda here? Let's see. Let's look at King Blitz. Or no, let's not look at him. Let's look at something else. What do we got here? These are all of my notifications of channels that I kind of like said, oh, this is interesting. Let's tumble down that rabbit hole, all that stuff. So if anybody else is watching this on the comments or on the chat room, suggest a channel that I should watch or check out. Yeah. Okay, crypto nights and weekends. What's all this about? Booked. Oh, this is Bulldog Trades. The stream is not available anymore because they run 24 hours also. So, all right, then let's grab that notification and hide it. Crypto falling. Oh, this is this guy's funny.
Oh, hi! I didn't see you there.
He's the
Why are
Moneymaker
koalas
tribe,
not bears?
Shalom.
Because they didn't meet the qualifications. Boom, boom, Hello, everybody. I wanted to start you out with a little bit of joke, right? The markets are down, so we need a little pick me up. I hope that wasn't too corny. I know I'm a dad. I'm allowed some dad jokes. By the power vested in the fact that I am a dad, I'm allowed to tell dad jokes, so I'm sorry for that, but I hope that you enjoyed it, guys. What is going on in the market? What is going on with crypto? We're going to talk about all that. All I ask is that you put on a smile and let's dance straight into it.
I don't even know what that means. There's probably some other language, but I gotta figure it out. Anyways, welcome.
So the market is a real pooper, right? In the last 24 hours, down 5%. The stock market was down as well. AMC down, Nasdaq down 1.41%. It seemed like everything was dropping, yada yada yada, right? Well, there's basically some reasons why this is happening, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about the things that we can do, right, in times like this. And so first things first, why does this happen? Why does this happen, especially on Friday, that the stock market has been seeing lately these dips? Well, basically, it has to do with what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. Well, you say to yourself, well, there's nothing really that changed today. So why would this be bringing crypto down? Why would this be bringing down Shiba Inu, Ethereum, Bitcoin down 7%, Ethereum down almost 8%? What is going on? Why is this happening? Well, basically what happens usually on Friday is when it's time of uncertainty, people say to themselves, especially the big money, the hedge funds, I don't want to hold over the weekend, right?
This is old news. This is Friday. No, let's get rid of this one. All right, so that means let's get rid of this one. This notification is old. Russell Brand talking shit 2 days ago. That's old. 1 day ago. Oh, but you know what? This guy right here, Patrick Lancaster, he's another one. It's like he's an independent journalist. He decides that he wants to fucking spend his own money and go to Russia to observe or report. Kudos. But I don't know. Sometimes I listen to him and it sounds like, it sounds like he's on the Russian side or something. It's weird. I don't know. Listen to him for a second.
I'm Patrick Lancaster, and right now we're in one of the newly controlled territories of the DPR and Russian controlled areas. This area not long ago was taken control of by them from Ukraine control. And we're told by the locals here there was a bridge here behind me, but Ukraine forces destroyed this bridge. We're not sure exactly what it's for. We're going to talk to the locals and find out what they think about why Ukraine did this. But for now, please like this video, share it across all social media, and let's show the world together what's really happening in the Russian-Ukraine war. Stop raising slow.
Это взорвали, последнее, что люди могли ходить.
Кто сделал это?
Ну, ВСУ. ВСУ сделал, смотрите, что сделало.
Почему они сделали это?
Ну там, пошлите посмотрите, а что там, мне интересно там, вон, покажи сетку им.
Ага.
Сетку их не показывайте.
Почему они сделали мост, разбил?
Ну, чтоб люди вообще не ходили. Вот Косоротова рядом, чтобы люди вообще не ходили.
Ага.
Люди, дети, садик, школа. Вообще отрезали вон. Не знаю, как они там кушают. Вот, смотрите, покажите вот это, что они сделали с мостом. Это мост. Поближе, снимите вот.
Ага.
Смотрите, какой мост красивый был, а что с него стало? Что это? Ну, видите, вот.
Где мы находимся сейчас? Где мы находимся? Где?
Где мы находимся? На кладке. У нас это называется кладка.
Ага.
Косоротова ходит, оттуда сюда ходила. Ну, кто на работу, кто в садик, кто в школу ходил.
Ага.
А это, видите, все добили, чтобы люди не ходили.
Ага, это недалеко гранатные, да?
Гранит, это гранитное считаю. Мы считаем, это гранитное.
Ага.
А там Косоротова считается.
Ага.
Село Косоротово.
И как далеко украинские войска сейчас, знаю?
Я не знаю.
Ага.
Мы радио, у нас света нема, когда свет будет, посмотрим, что по телевизору покажут.
Ага, нету света, да?
Нету, света нету.
Ага, понял. Хорошо, спасибо.
Мы с вами подходим к взорванному мосту через водную преграду. Здесь, получается, непосредственно рядом находились украинские позиции, а в том направлении, если продвигаться, там позиции народной милиции раньше были. Фактически мы сейчас зашли в тыл к украинским позициям. Мост взорван, думаю, рано или поздно его установят для нормального транспортного снабжения с этим населенным пунктом.
Можете сказать, что произошло мост?
Мост взрывали 2 раза. 1 раз подорвали, его отремонтировали.
Ага.
Через несколько дней его взорвали 2 раз. Он разлетелся полностью. Вот железо.
Ага.
Вот это железо, вон в дом попала дырка, вон, видите?
So you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well, forget about stocks, real estate, or cryptocurrency. There is a little known...
The war in Ukraine has not even completed a fortnight, but a diplomatic fallout is already in the making. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has called his country's relationship with Russia ironclad, offering strong support to Russia. At an annual press conference, the Chinese Foreign Minister lauded Russia. Wang Yi called Russia the most important strategic partner. He also condemned the West's naked double standards, as he put it, on China's territorial claims towards Taiwan. Listen in.
The friendship between Chinese and Russian people is rock solid. There is a bright prospect for cooperation between the two sides. No matter how precarious and challenging the international situation may be, China and Russia will maintain strategic focus and steadily advance our comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination for a new era.
While China has supported Russia's opposition of NATO expansion, Russia has endorsed China's view of Taiwan as an inalienable part of China. Russia and China have mutually supported each other's core interests. Only recently in February, the leaders of the two nations had met in Beijing, just before Russia began its invasion of Ukraine. Needless to say, the ongoing war is bound to have a major fallout on the Indo-Pacific and Europe too. Putin's military might is bound to impact China's President Xi Jinping. Russian actions have already signaled China's need for more muscular policies in the case of Taiwan. More importantly, Putin's resolve has challenged the limits of NATO. His attack on Ukraine and NATO's response has left Indo-Pacific nations with the big question: how far is the West willing to get involved in an Indo-Pacific conflict? Especially considering most Western nations have a low stake in the Indo-Pacific, not to forget the crisis in Afghanistan, which has been placed on the back burner by the West, including the Quad and the European Union. The dynamics within Europe are also changing overnight. Germany has spectacularly changed course. The country has dramatically increased its military spending. An initial injection of $253 billion will now be followed by an annual 2% of GDP dedicated in each budget. Moreover, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced that his country will join the rest of Europe in providing weapons to Ukraine. The move defies Germany's standing policy prohibiting the sale of arms to war zones. Suddenly, Russia's invasion has forced a more unified response out of EU nations. NATO has rushed eastward. Baltic states of Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia hastily agreed to become a forward post for NATO troops. Even a neutral nation like Switzerland has joined the EU's economic sanctions targeting Russia. A non-NATO member, Sweden, has been granted special access to NATO intelligence. Europe's southeast is equally galvanized. Bosnia is mulling over a formal bid to join NATO, and Kosovo is now making a pitch for a permanent US base on its territory. French troops have been sent into Romania as a mark of European solidarity. So much so, a nation like Turkey, known to walk the middle path between Russia and NATO, has also closed the Turkish straits to warships. This will hamper Russia's ability to move more ships from the Mediterranean into the Black Sea and then onto southern Ukraine. WION, of course, is getting you all the latest updates of the conflict unfolding in Ukraine as we speak. Our correspondent Anas Malik now joins us live from Ukraine's capital, Kiev. Anas, thanks so much for joining us. You have been reporting for...
Here's basically what's going on right now. Is my dog is really begging for me to take her out. You can see her staring me down, and I'm going to show you right now. There you go. Oh yeah. She's like, "You're an asshole, Dad. It's sunny outside, and you're not taking me out. You have a recumbent trike, and you can go rolling around town everywhere, and you are not taking me to the PARK right now." So, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go take my pooch for a stroll. And once I'm done doing all of that, I'll be back over here and we can start playing around and broadcasting and doing all that other stuff again. So, that being said, people, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me at this watch party. Yep. And we're out of here.